Good morning, everyone. This week on Capital City Sunday, former President Donald Trump is indicted for a fourth time, and Wisconsin's fake elector scheme is once again involved.
I think if you and I walked down the street and asked people what they thought of some of these fake electors, we might get a lot of people that go, what are you guys talking about? You know, we're not really certain.
What a Republican strategist says voters are really focused on for election season.
Only Joe Biden could go out there and brag about an economic agenda that so many Americans disapprove of.
And Republicans react to the president's cross-country tour to tout his economic agenda, why they say his policies are failing Americans. And a new study from a UW-Madison professor on misinformation, why proponents of the phrase, do your own research, were more likely to be misinformed. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sarah Massler-Donar. Former President Donald Trump's latest indictment, this time out of Fulton County, Georgia, mentions Wisconsin 13 times. Each reference is in relation to the scheme to have fake electors cast the state's 10 electoral votes for Trump, even though Joe Biden received the most votes in Wisconsin. The indictment names current state Republican Party Chair Brian Schimming, saying he knew about the plan and met with a pro-Trump lawyer and Rudy Giuliani to talk about a meeting of the fake electors. Schimming is mentioned in the indictment but not charged, and none of Wisconsin's fake electors face criminal charges. Here now with me is Brandon Scholz, a retired Republican strategist and former executive director of the Wisconsin GOP. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
You bet. Pleasure.
Of course. So after every indictment that has come his way, former President Donald Trump has seemingly continued to enjoy strong support among his Republican base. A recent poll from AP Nork Center, from AP and the Nork Center actually showed that his approval actually went up over the couple of months since his first indictment. What do you think this now fourth indictment does? Does he still experience that same support, or will he take a hit?
I think Trump continues to be supportive by the people that like him. So when these indictments come, those folks that like Donald Trump, they're still going to like him. They're not buying this whole retribution, kind of thing. They like Trump. They believe they're going to stick with him. The indictments aren't going to affect them one way or another. They're not going to make any stronger or any weaker. But it's the other group of Republicans who maybe have not made up their mind. They may not be certain about Trump this time. They're still trying to decide Trump, DeSantis, where are we going to go? Those are the people that, I think you really have to look at. Right now, those indictments are not necessarily hurting Trump. But keep in mind, it's early. You've not heard, you've heard just that he's been indicted. And so right away people think, oh, he's been indicted. Everybody's just going to say he's over. Fundraising is improved. That's to be expected because from your base, you're going to get support. So the indictments haven't hurt his base support. In Wisconsin, that's about 35%. So for the rest of the Republicans, I think they're in a wait and see attitude. They're going to see what these indictments see. Everybody's, wants to see if this is really true. Is it political retribution on the part of the Democrats? Some people would even suggest that maybe the Democrats shouldn't be doing this because they want Donald Trump in the general election, but they're going to go through these 4 different sets of indictments and see what happens.
And the election is a long way away.
Still a long ways away.
Well, let's talk about Wisconsin now. Wisconsin's fake elector scheme really taking a center stage, a big focus in really the last 2 indictments we've been mentioned here. Does trust in state Republicans take a hit, or do they not even care?
I think a lot of this you have to separate between kind of what's inside baseball, what's inside politics, and what do people talk about when they're at work, at home, at the water cooler, on the deck, whatever it is. A lot of this fake elector, what happened to the election, was the election stolen, at some point becomes, I think, more insider baseball, more inside politics. Is it really part of what the general public thinks about, and do they append that to Donald Trump in this election? And is that really going to be part of what this election about? You find a lot of people wanting to know what candidates are going to talk about in terms of issues and in their campaign, what their platform is going to be, how as president they would operate. So does this almost a side story from the last election still be dominant in what people are using to determine who they're going to support? I think it's inside politics. It's still inside baseball. People really aren't focused too much on it. I think if you and I walked down the street and asked people what they thought of some of these fake electors, we might get a lot of people that go, what are you guys talking about? We're not really certain. So For those people, and maybe it's in those people who donate, who support candidates, who follow it a little bit, that might give them pause. But right now, those people that support Donald Trump, this story doesn't matter.
So I'm curious, when you talk about going down the street asking people about this fake elector scheme, well, we do know with this last indictment, Brian Schimming was mentioned in it. He's not charged, but he did meet with people who are charged in this alleged conspiracy to overturn the election. He met with them just a few days before the electors, cast these fake votes here. Do you think when he met with them, should alarm bells have been going off that this could have been a potentially illegal or questionable event here?
Oh, I really don't know. I mean, I'm not in the room. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not certain what they were told and what they were suggested to do. Do people really care about what they were talking about and what those supposed fake electors were going to do or not going to do? Again, I think it's inside politics. People really don't know who Brian Schimming is and probably don't really care. So, is that going to impact people's decisions on who they're going to vote for in the primary? And remember, that's what this is all about. Of the Republicans that are going to challenge Joe Biden, who are they going to support? Will fake electors impact their decision to support Donald Trump? And maybe it will, and maybe they'll go to Ron DeSantis. Maybe it won't impact them at all, and whoever they thought they were going to support, they're still going to support that person. So unless there's some really big fireworks and something that we haven't seen and heard about yet comes up, I don't think it impacts that much.
And if former President Trump doesn't show up to the presidential debate later this week in Milwaukee, do Wisconsin voters remember that, or do they just carry on?
That's an opportunity for who becomes the challenger to Trump, the odds-on challenger. So whoever comes out of that debate, I think it's a perfect opportunity for Ron DeSantis to stand up and say what he's for rather than becoming Trump light. And if he does that and can walk out of that debate, and people go, hey, that's not a bad alternative, because there are still Republicans who are saying, am I voting for Trump or somebody else? Because eventually I'm going to have to pick somebody against Joe Biden, because they're not going to go vote for Joe Biden. So does the debate, if Trump doesn't show up, help Ron DeSantis? Probably so. If Trump shows up, he's the story. He's center stage. That's where all the questions go. He does all the asking of everything else. He's the 800-pound gorilla. My personal opinion is it's to his advantage to show up. I doubt whether he will, though.
Well, let's talk a little bit about voter turnout for Republicans here, looking ahead to the election. There's a big focus on getting more Republicans out to vote. We've had the new Bank Your Vote initiative, getting Republicans out to vote early. Do you think those Republican voters are even out there for the party to target, or do they need to be brought back into the fold?
One of the big challenges the Republican Party has in Wisconsin, as well as other states in the country, is to bring back those voters that Donald Trump pushed out of the party. The Trump team said a long time ago they hijacked the Republican Party. And as a result of some of the positions and things that Trump has done, there have been people who have left. Suburban Republican women have been mentioned hundreds of times in terms of leaving the party. Are they really still there in the wild counties over on the other side of the state? What do Republicans have to do to bring people back to the party and bring more people to the party, including those 35 and under and younger? Because today, if they just turned out those people who say they're Republicans, is that enough to win? And some suggestions maybe it's not. What happened in the last election last fall for the governor's race, for the U.S. Senate race, for the Supreme Court race this spring? Okay, the other side did a great job of turning out their voters. Did Republicans have the voters to turn out, or do they need more? And I think it's probably a little bit of the latter. They're going to have to bump up those ranks.
All right. Well, Brandon Scholz, thank you so much for joining the show this morning.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.